Welcome to the Hokie Hoops podcast. I'm your host, PP. I've got Ed Williams here. Mike McDaniel is not joining us, but Ed, how you doing, man? How was your holiday?
Good. It was great, man. And I know it's been a long time since we recorded. Mike and I recorded an episode without Pete, and when Pete's not here, everything falls apart, and our audio didn't record. So we went to go post it, and
It wasn't on you, Ed. It
it
wasn't
was
on
just
you.
Mike. It was just Mike and I talking, and no words coming out. So it's been a couple games since we did that episode, so we got some more stuff to talk about. We can dive into right now.
Yeah, dude. And this is a perfect time to get into the men's basketball team. We're kind of in between stuff. We got the bowl game next week. It's holiday weekend. The time between Christmas and New Year's is always, I don't know about you, Ed, but like I've been eating bagels every day, chocolates, candy. I'm in a bad place, and I'm not gonna stop until our bowl game is over, and then I want to try to get it together. I don't know where you're at with all that.
Yeah, it's like a time of the year where just nothing feels real. Like time is not a real thing. You got football on at 11 a.m. right now. It's just a weird time.
For sure. All right. So we got big news this week in the ACC, and that another coaching legend is retiring. Jim Larinaga stepping down at Miami. They are off to a pretty rough start, and it was another opportunity for those that feel that college athletics are headed in the wrong direction to again make that take. Because think about what we've lost in the ACC over the past couple of years. Ed, it's Williams, Coach K, Boeheim, Tony Bennett just before the season, and now Jim Larinaga. That is so many amazing coaches the conference has lost.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. I believe the stat I saw was that it was Jeff Goodman tweeted it out, and I can find it super quickly. But I believe the longest tenured head coach in the ACC.
It's got to be Hamilton, right?
Where did it go? I just searched Mike Young's name. Well, regardless, my point was I think Mike Young is like fifth at 6 years. Um, Mike
Yeah.
Young was in the top five of the longest tenured coaches, and he's been at Virginia Tech for 6 years. So yeah,
Mm.
further hammers home your point that we've lost a lot of really good coaching um, in the ACC recently, and we've supplemented on the back end too. Like I think Pat Kelsey at Louisville was a really good hire. You know, there's a lot of programs that have kind of righted the ship and are trending in the right direction from a coaching standpoint as well. But yeah, a lot of legends gone, and it gives a lot of people feel some type of way about the way Tony Bennett left, rightfully so, and some people are feeling similar ways about Jim Larinaga. I would challenge you to look at it a little differently with Larinaga. I think it was probably one of those scenarios, just reading through the tea leaves, where he told Miami, "I'm done after this year," and they said, "Well, why don't you be done now?" That gives them they are the
Could
first
be.
premier job on the market right now in terms of a job hunt. That gives them a leg up over every other school in the country to get whoever they want. And
Do you
also,
think do you think Miami is a better coaching job in basketball than UVA? Like, would you if you're a coaching candidate, would you rather
I
coach
think
Miami or UVA?
my answer for that can only be answered if I had their NIL budgets in front of my face. That's the only
Okay.
thing that matters anymore is NIL. So it's like,
You also get to live in Miami.
and you can Miami. I mean, I think it's I wouldn't say UVA is better. I would say if anything, they're equal. I would probably lean Miami. If I'm a young up and coming coach trying to, ascend to national relevance, I would say Miami job's better.
It's so easy to recruit to,
Yeah,
and they just recently went to a Final Four.
yeah,
More recently than UVA did. I know UVA has that natty, but it seems like a place you could win.
absolutely.
But going back to the point of just losing the legends, the ACC is struggling this year in conference play. It happened last year. It's been happening for several seasons. This year seems the most severe just with the way the SEC ACC challenge played out. And the recent, was it Maryland and Syracuse? There was some like absolutely
Maryland,
ridiculous result. Yeah. I know Maryland's very good, but every time we play at a conference, even if it's against a bad team, I think Miami lost to Mount St. Mary's, and maybe that played into some of what's going on down there. But it's ugly right now for the conference. That being said, it does give our men an opportunity to maybe win a few more games than they should during a regular ACC year, because I just don't think the conference is very good. We will see about that. We're going to get to the women a little bit later in the show. For right now, we're going to handle what's been going on with the men's team. The last time you guys heard from us, the men were 3-2. They are now 5-7. They lost to Michigan and South Carolina down in Florida. Followed that up with a very ugly Vandy game, which we did a live show for. You can go and find that on the live feed. There was some fun talk in there, but ultimately the game wasn't very good. We had the Pitt loss, which the guys played well, Ed. I really was hoping we were going to pull that one off.
Yeah, dude, they had that one. I think they were up 5. Yeah, Mike and I talked about this on our episode that doesn't have sound, but we were up 5 with like, I want to say 5 to go. With the ball, a chance to go up 7, and then turn the ball over 3 straight times for runaway layups at the other end, literally handing them 6 points
Yep.
and giving away the lead. And it was just, it's just one of those things, man. It was the typical turnover game that we've seen a lot of this year, and the turnovers have actually calmed down a little bit since then against lower competition. But that's all it was. I mean, it was a game Virginia Tech had and just literally handed away. Felt
And if you
horrible
look
for
at the
the players and
KenPom,
the staff because the players and the staff. I thought the coaching staff coached an amazing game in that Pitt game. Absolutely coached Jeff Capel into a box, and ultimately the talent disparity and athleticism disparity won out in the end. But man, they had that one.
and experience too, right? Because down
Yeah,
the stretch, we're making those dumb mistakes that you see young, inexperienced teams make. But Pitt is number 2 in the conference in the KenPom. Like that is a very good team, and we had them on the ropes. So it stinks. I'm not sure if it really matters in the long term. Like we're not going to make the tournament this year, but it would have been nice to get the win. Regardless, I like the fight I saw. Then we beat NCA&T, and we play Navy, and we get down 10 points to Navy early in that game. We cut it to 5 at the half, and then we go on and we win by 8. And I was actually that made me feel pretty good because the team weathered a little bit of a storm there because Navy is not a good team. Like you could not lose that game, and they didn't. So I'll give them credit for that. Ben Burnham led us with 17 in that game, 17 points in that game, and only 10 turnovers. As you said, they had been calming down
yeah,
just a little bit from the high teens we had been seeing, and even that 24 against was that Michigan? That was a rough one, but been getting a little bit better. And Ben Burnham, the two Bens, have been playing better lately. Let's talk about them in 1 second. Most recently, we lost to St. Joe's in Philly. Close first half, but terrible second half. Outscored by 18 points, lost by 20. But again, the Bens led us both with 11 points, just 12 turnovers in that one. But we got beat up on the boards pretty good in the St. Joe's game. St. Joe's is decent. Don't get me wrong. But I was hoping for a better mark. The first half is what I was expecting. Kind of a close game. Maybe we lose close, but it just got out of hand. I don't know if road games are going to be a problem area for us as we go on here.
I think road games are going to be a problem. And I think that because we don't have anything to kind of hang our hat on or lean on in adverse moments, you've seen, in adverse moments, this team just kind of it spirals out of control a little bit. You don't have a go-to um, play or player to go to when things get tough to stop the bleeding. I think that's why you've seen these outrageous runs against us, followed by runs for us on the offensive end. But if they go on a 14-0 run and you go on an 8-0 run, that they're still winning. So we haven't done a good job of stopping the bleeding, and that's something that we're going to struggle with as we get into more road environments in the ACC.
And we have a freshman point guard now. And
Yes, we
that's
do.
something I want to talk about because that's not a negative. I love this kid, Ben Hammond. You were on him before the season even started, and he has assumed the starting point guard role. And I think we are a better run team with him at the helm. And as he improves and gets more experience, I think it could lead. I'm not sure how many more wins it's going to lead to this year. Hopefully, some more towards the end. But down the road, I'm very excited because I don't think he's giving up this role. As long as he's at Tech, I think he will be the starting point guard.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see who starts against Duke
Okay.
because, um, hey, Ben Hammond, welcome to college basketball. Your second start ever is in Cameron against probably the best team in the country. I'm curious to see. Now, he very well could handle that better than Brandon Rexsteiner. Ben's played in some really big environments in high school, and he might be able to handle that just fine if, compared to his competition. So I'm curious to see which direction they go there. But yeah, I think the offenses run a little bit better when Ben's in the game. I think Brandon gives you a higher ceiling in terms of an individual score. But I think running the stuff, getting the ball on the floor where you want the ball to get to, I think Ben Hammond is just a little bit better at that area right now. Plays really good defense, creates a lot of turnovers, causes steals, but I'm curious to see what direction they go in terms of minutes distribution when we get into ACC play, particularly at Duke.
He's averaging 20 minutes a game the last 3 games,
Yeah.
double-digit scoring in each of those 3 games, shooting almost 47% from 3 on the year, which is the best
Hmm.
on the team. 1.2 steals a game, not too shabby, considering that he wasn't playing a lot of minutes early on. 9 assists over the last 3 games. That's a number he'll have to pick up as he gets more comfortable, but they've definitely brought him along, and he's starting to play, half of every game. I like what I'm seeing out of that kid. Let's talk about Rec for a second. And he's not that much older than Ben. If you want to talk about
Yeah, he's a year
experience, like he's
older.
he's only a year older, but he's been turning the ball over too much.
Yeah.
And we had said on previous shows he probably is a better 2 guard than he is a point guard. Like, I don't know if he's a natural point guard or not. Playing him off the ball, I think, is his best opportunity for success. So we'll see how much he plays the 2 as we kind of move through ACC play here. But he was averaging 2.7 turnovers a game and just 3.7 assists. That ratio is simply just not going to get it done. But I think he does have an opportunity to still contribute to this team from a different position.
Yeah, he still played a ton of minutes against St. Joe's. Yeah, I think he's a little bit like Sean Padula. Brandon's probably more of a true point guard than Padula was, but
Probably.
in reality, they're both undersized 2 guards who have to play the point because of their size. Sean a better individual scorer. Brandon probably still is a little bit of a better passer, even though he turns the ball over a lot. But yeah, they're very similar players, and unfortunately, when your point guard who you're now handing the keys to is undersized, it's really hard to play an undersized 2 guard next to him. So pulling the 2 of them together is going to be something that's really challenging to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see it in spurts as we get into ACC play. It won't work against Duke, but not much will.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that minutes distribution progresses. But I kind of was calling for Ben to get the nod because I think the ball gets to the places on the floor we want it to get to easier with Ben Hammond than it does with Brandon Rexsteiner right now.
Yeah. And you're going to have to, I'm saying the thing about the 2 guard, like you're going to have to play Rec at point still because
Yeah,
we don't have options. But if you do get more options, I would
they
expect him
have
to.
they have turned a little bit to Rodney Brown bringing the ball up from time to time,
Okay.
which is something. And actually, we I guess haven't had a podcast with audio go out since Rodney Brown kind of got inserted into the rotation here. But so we can talk more about him in a second. But they have turned to that a little bit. That's something I'm interested to see if that continues as we get further into the season and he plays more minutes.
Yeah, let's just talk about him now because I'm trying to remember the game that he emerged and it was like, oh man, where's this guy been hiding? And
Yeah,
we talked about his 3-point, like his performance his freshman year at Cal and how that could be a real weapon. And then we didn't really see him. And I think he was maybe a little banged up in camp or something like that.
yeah, he
And
was
then the
hurt.
last few games, he started shooting threes. And the one game, it might have been the Navy game, it's like, oh my God, Rodney, please save us because he had an amazing first half.
Yeah, he was hurt in camp. The day we did Slam Jam, I had a chance to catch a couple minutes of practice, and he was limited in that practice. So I think he was a little nicked up during camp, and that led to kind of him coming on a little bit slower. But yeah, he's a guy who you see him out on the floor, and you can clearly tell that this is a Power 5 basketball player. He's tall, long, lanky, really smooth with the ball, really smooth looking jump shot. So he's a player I'm excited to see continue to progress. He's young in his career too. Again, that's kind of the common theme here throughout the roster, right? First and second year guys. So I'm excited to watch him continue to progress. I think he's got a lot of game and is someone that I think we can continue to build around as we move further into the season.
Yeah, he had a bad shooting day against St. Joe's, and no one played particularly well that day, but he was 0 of 4 from 3. The previous 2 games, he was 3 of 5 and 3 of 4. And those are the 2 games I was talking about. I was like, oh man, where did this kid come from? But I remember looking at his percentages as a true freshman at Cal, and like freshmen notoriously 3-point shooters, like they don't normally do so well the freshman year. And he was really good with a lot of attempts despite playing few minutes at Cal. He could be a weapon for us going forward. And he has plenty of years left to play. So hopefully we can keep him around and get to that full potential. Let's talk about the other Ben Burnham, the guy I liked before the season to maybe be the most valuable player on the team. He's starting to play more like I expected. His last 5 games, he's averaging over 10 points a game, double digits 3 times, 9 of 21 from 3-point range over that span, and shooting 45% from 3 on the year. He seems to be a little bit more comfortable, and I'm not really sure what was going on in the beginning to where he is now.
I think he's just found his role, found his footing in the offense. He just looks more comfortable than he did at the beginning of the season. He's catching the ball and making decisions at a much faster rate. And that was a theme with all the newcomers early. It was kind of a half second hesitation on decision making that we're starting to see get worked through, especially with older guys like Ben Burnham. But yeah, I think it really just comes down to he's more comfortable in his role and his position in this system and what he's being asked to do. And he's been a bright spot over the last few games.
What do you think about Poteet's play this year so far? Because I'm looking at him only grabbing 4.5 rebounds a game. And to me, for our main big man, that's just simply not enough. And I'm wondering if this continues, would we see maybe some of Ryan Jones? Because we've really seen so little of him so far.
I don't even know if Ryan Jones. I mean, Ryan Jones is he's not a center, so
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah,
that's
that's
a
true.
natural replacement anyway. I have, I mean, on the center spot as a whole, been pretty underwhelmed with Malaja's play. I thought he was going to take a big step forward and kind of replace the Lynn Kid production. I always liked Malaja's game as the backup big. I thought he was someone that could be utilized in a full time role as the starter, and he's gotten a chance to do that this year. And so far, come up short in some areas. We'll see how that, see if he can turn that around in ACC play. But I've been cautiously optimistic about Patrick Wessler. The more he's played, the more comfortable he's looked. Same kind of thing, like catching the ball and making decisions faster now than he was early in the season. Early in the season, he'd get the ball in really good positions and wait half a second before going up. Now he's just going up and being more decisive, and the results have been better at
He had
both
8
of
points
that.
against
So
St. Joe's.
yeah, I
I
mean he's proven to be more than competent, I would say. Now again, competition levels getting ticked up here in a second, so
Yep.
we'll see how that goes. But so far, I've been pretty pleased with what I've seen from Wessler. The more he's played, but overall, the center spot's been a glaring weakness.
Yeah, it has been. And even Toby isn't grabbing rebounds quite at the clip that he was earlier on in the year.
Yeah,
He did grab like 7 in 15 minutes against NCA&T, but since then it's been 3 and 3 in 20 minutes. I expect a little bit more
Tyler
from
Johnson's
him.
second on the team in rebounds. So
Right. And he has still looked good outside of the St. Joe's game. Again, that I don't know. Like he has still been a strong player for us and will continue to be an important part of the team. And let's lastly talk about Jaden Young. He's been relegated to the bench. He's scored 3 points in each of the last, I think it's 4 games, 3 points each. 33% from the field on the year. It's a bummer, man, because this is a kid that we really thought was going to come on strong and kind of take the next step. And it hasn't happened yet. There's still time. Sometimes it like we were talking about this with Jaden Keller for 3 years, and he finally like came on at the end of this year in football. So maybe it'll just take Jaden a little bit longer, but that's another. It's just another one of those things about this team where it's like how we expect to get a little bit more out of Malaja, a little bit more out of Young, a little bit more out of Shoot, like, and it just hasn't quite happened.
yeah, I agree. I've been surprised that Jaden hasn't been able to grab this role more. And I think if I had to guess, the more Rodney Brown plays, the less Jaden Young plays. And you'll see a lot more Rodney Brown and Jaden Shoot versus Jaden Shoot and Jaden Young.
Yep.
So hopefully I'm wrong and Jaden Young can find a way, find his footing here moving forward. But so far, not a whole lot to be optimistic about. And on the opposite side of that, his competition is Rodney Brown, and there's been a lot to be optimistic about there in his short stint with us.
Let's talk about conference play. Let's do a little ACC preview, what the Hokies got coming up and stuff. And we talked about Duke because that is the next one on the schedule. They're the class of the conference. It's not really close. They're by far the best team on paper and so far pretty much on the court. And they're only going to get better because they've got 3 guys projected to go in the first round of the NBA draft. And they're the only ranked team on our schedule left. And like at this point, because there's only one ACC team I think that's ranked right now. They're number 4 in the AP. They're number 2 in the Ken Palm. And if you look at just where the ACC ranks in terms of draftable players, the first round projections, It's 5 total out of the whole conference. 3 from Duke, 2 from UNC, and that's it. And so this might be the most interesting Hokies basketball game coming up when we play Duke on the 31st, New Year's Eve,
Mhm.
because of Duke, because it's Cooper Flag and Knipple and who's the other kid, Mock or something, or Malik. That there it's going to be a fun game to watch, but not for the reasons of the Hokies potentially winning, because I think this is going to get ugly.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be brutal. I'm guessing we try to shrink the game, slow everything down, but if you start turning the ball over against those guys, they're gonna get out and run and dunk on your head, and it's gonna be tough. But yeah, Cooper Flag leads them in points, rebounds, and assists. He's one of the best players in the country. We knew that coming into his freshman campaign. Um, I could pull up their whole roster here and just kind of go through it, but yeah, they have freakish talent, more probably talent on their roster than any other team in the country, just in terms of top to bottom. I mean, Malik Brown, Syracuse transfer, really good player. Isaiah Evans, freshman, has been awesome in spurts for them. Cooper Flag, obviously, everybody knows about. And then Tyrese Proctor's been really good this year. I believe he's
Proctor's been
shooting.
great.
Yeah, he's shooting. Let's see, he's shooting 43%. He's shooting 48% from three at home. He's shooting 41 total on the year. So just a lot of really good players, man. Just unbelievable talent, top to bottom. And this is Shire's best shot at making a deep run so far in his Duke tenure.
I don't think people realize that Cooper Flag is leading them in assists. Like, it's not a lot of assists, it's 3.5, but he has the most on the team. And it's going to be fun to I've sat and watched a couple of his games, but I want to see, I just want to see more of him because he's going to be the number 1 overall pick, and it's fun to watch. So let's just put the Duke game aside. After that is probably our best chance at an ACC win we're going to have this year, because Miami is coming to Castle. Their coach just stepped down. And unless they get that, new coach like momentum burst, they're probably the worst team we're going to play. And especially getting them at home. I said to Ed before we started, like, that's a must win. Like, if we want to get to 5 ACC wins,
Yeah.
6 ACC wins, like, we have to have the Miami game.
Yeah, we do because in terms of the other ACC bottom feeders, we get them on the road, like Boston College on the road. So, yeah, this is in theory, the worst team will play at home the rest of the way. And yeah, you got to get that one. Now, of course, they probably will get that new coach boost, but you got to find a way to win that game. I mean, the Lynn kid return game. We've already had the Tyler Nickel and MJ Collins return game, so now we get the Lynn kid one as well. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, when you look at after Duke, right, it's Miami. Then you go out to the West Coast for 2 against Stanford and Cal. Stanford's a pretty good team, but Cal's not that great. That would be a really strong road win for a team like Virginia Tech. NC State, Wake Forest, good teams, not great teams, I would say. And then, yeah, in terms of home games that are very winnable, this is by far the best one. Maybe Syracuse later in the year, they're not off to a great start.
Yeah.
That one's towards the end of the season. You could maybe get that one, but yeah, got to find a way to win that Miami game if you want to stack any semblance of a respectable ACC resume.
I also think the guys, they need something in that locker room to make them feel like they have a chance in these games. And if you can get an early ACC win against Miami, I think it would go a long way, because they're about to get demoralized against Duke. Like, it's not, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. Obviously, it's just the reality of the situation. Like, it's going to go badly.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, I mean,
after that, if they can pick up the pieces and find a way to win, that confidence for a younger team could just go such a long way. So that's a very important game. And I agree with you on the Cal thing. Like, that's a winnable one. They're going to be out on the West Coast for a while. So it's a tough situation, but it's a winnable game. So ACC record prediction right now, Ed, if I'm putting you on the spot, but what you got over there? We play 20 games. Keep in mind, listeners.
9-11. I think they win 4 more games the rest of the way.
Okay. 4.
So that would be.
Oh, no, you're saying 9 home games.
9 wins on the season. Sorry.
I got you.
4 ACC wins. We finished 9, and that would be what, 9-28. No, what do we have right now?
9-20 something. But
what do we have right now? 7.
We're
losses?
5. Yeah. Wait. Yeah. 5-7.
Yeah, I think we win 4 ACC games. Don't ask me to pick where.
Yeah, I know.
But I think we
I'm
win
a
4, and I think there'll be 4. I think there'll probably be like 6 or 7 opportunities to win, and we'll find a way to win 4. Like, what I mean by that is, like, 6 or 7 more of those pit type games where the game plan is so strong, the coaching is so strong, and it just comes down to execution in the final 5 minutes ish.
yeah.
I think there'll be 6 or 7 more of those, and I think we'll win 4 of them. That's kind of my stance.
I think any home game we could potentially win. Because if you're looking at the Pitt game alone, we had a chance to win, and that's more or less the second best team in the ACC. So we play Duke on the road, and then we're done with them. So every home game we will have, it's a winnable game. I'm not saying that we will or they're going to be easy, but they're all winnable because home court advantage is still a thing in college basketball. It means a lot. So I think we can get to 5 or 6 wins. The ceiling, I think, is, I hate to say the ceiling is 6 wins. I'll say the ceiling is 7 wins in ACC play, but it's probably going to end up around the 5-win mark would be my prediction, 5-15, which sucks. It sucks because earlier in the year, we were hoping we could get closer to 500, maybe 8 or 9 ACC wins at a ceiling. That's not going to happen after what we've seen and some things that have gone on and whatever. So 5 is my prediction.
Yeah, I forgot we already played one ACC game, so
Yeah.
my final record prediction, I had to double check my math there. 9-22. That's my final prediction.
9-22. Okay. So we've only won, and I brought this up, and this is the last thing I'll say before we move to the women. We've only won less than 10 games like twice in 70 years, Ed.
Yeah,
It,
this is shaping up to be one of the worst seasons in school history.
it's it absolutely stinks, but the guys are in control to make that not the case. If they can get to 6 ACC wins or maybe even 7, you can change the narrative on where this program is headed. That's like, but if you do exactly what me and Ed think and you go 5, it could lead to changes. We don't have to unpack that right now. I don't want to see Mike Young go out the way Larinaga just went out in the middle of the season. I don't want to see that. And I think that he has the guys fighting enough to make us competitive throughout at least the home games of ACC play.
I'll say what I've always said on this. Like, if you're wit, or if you're someone calling, if you're wit and you want to make a change, one, you better make sure you have the backing from the Board of Visitors. 2, you better fund the next guy correctly, because if you don't, no one's gonna come take this job if it's currently resourced the way it is. No one's gonna do it. So you're not gonna go get some young up and comer. You're not gonna, like, the fan base will clamor for like a Ryan Odom. He ain't leaving that for this. No
Yeah.
shot. So if you're not gonna resource the current regime, if you're gonna make a change, you better resource the next one, or you're gonna end up in the same spot.
Yep.
And you're not gonna go get who you want.
And no one's going to show up to the games.
Well, and that's a whole different conversation. Maybe don't remove non-conference games from season ticket plans. That was just stupid. What did you think was going to happen?
I
Like,
know. I'm hoping we get some good Castle crowds once ACC play gets fired
I
up.
mean, that was just a ridiculous decision. I mean, you can rationalize it to me from a business perspective all you want, but what did you think was going to happen? I mean,
I don't know, man.
did you think like people were going to go out of their way to buy tickets to the NCAA game? Crazy decision. But that's neither here nor there. No, I mean, my point is, like, if you're gonna make a move, you have to have properly resourced the
Yep.
next person. And my counter to that is, why not just resource the current one? But we have this new revenue sharing system, and what the men's basketball slice of that pie looks like will be determined at a later date. I anticipate, based on kind of what I've heard and what the current state of affairs is with the men's basketball program, I would think people are embarrassed. I would think the athletic department and the donors and the powers that be and the
Yeah.
voices that matter are a little bit embarrassed by this. But that embarrassment should, in theory, lead to a pretty good resource allocation from that revenue sharing, to get the program back into a place where it can compete. And I think we've seen time and time again with this coaching staff, if they're even on a level playing field, man, they're going to punch up.
Yep.
They punched up and almost beat Pitt the other day. So
It's a good staff. It is a good
yeah,
staff.
like
There
an
have been
X's and
they're
O's
not completely
perspective is great.
blameless. They're not
And
completely blameless in everything that's going
no,
on,
yeah, no,
but
there were some
they are a
decisions
good
made that were wrong.
staff when it comes to it's the exact opposite of basically what's going on in football. Like when it
Yeah,
comes to the X's and O's and what's happening on the field, on the court, this is a really good group of people under Mike Young. And I feel for the young guys on the staff that are trying to build a career in the sport. And they've been handicapped by by what the administration and everything else that
yeah,
has gone on. It's and everyone takes blame, but it's just tough. It's tough to see, but
yep.
maybe one day, Ed, will also, in addition to the revenue sharing that takes place, there will be kind of like a Hokie Hoops booster club of sorts that could help with getting more players as well.
We've tried.
We'll see. We'll see. All right, let's move to the women. They are 9-3, and unlike the men, they are looking strong in the first year of a new coach. They got to 6-1 before also losing to Michigan, like the men did, in a reasonably close game, and then they beat Georgia. They lost to Duke before beating in Radford and Campbell. So Duke is a top 15 team right now, and the ACC
Duke's really
is
good.
is loaded. I mean, there's 6 ranked teams in the women's sport in the ACC right now. So there's no shame in the Duke loss, but I think some of the conversation we had after that game was just that when they go up against these more premier teams and they're in this year one with Coach Duffy, they may struggle to remain competitive throughout.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to follow. I think you touched on it really briefly there, but that Georgia win was huge. I think for if this team's going to have NCAA hopes, that non-conference win on the road against Georgia to come back from behind in that one. I mean, they were trailing most of that game and came back and pulled away and won.
Great
That
win.
was a really good win, and I think really important, kind of program moment early in Duffy's tenure to go down there and get that one. Duke's really good. The ACC is really good as a whole, but I've been impressed with this team so far. I think the style of play is really fun to watch. I think it suits a lot of the strengths of some of these girls like Carly Wenzel, Samaya Suffren, Mackenzie Nelson, I think has been really good. Rose Michaud has been really good. So it's a team that I anticipate will compete for that upper middle part of the ACC, which would put you kind of right on the edge of, you win one game here versus, lose it. You win a close one that you might have should have lost. I think you end up in the NCAA tournament. So I think it's going to be really close. But I've liked what I've seen so far. I think it's a really, really fun team, and I think Duffy is a really, really good coach that will have this thing humming back in that top 25 neighborhood sooner rather than later.
And they're still kind of doing the point guard by committee right now, too.
Yeah,
Carly leads us in points, and I think she's second in assists, but she's barely second in assists because you've
yeah.
got Nelson, who we talked about on the last show that I was on with you, where
Nelson's actually first now, by the way.
yeah, that's what in assists, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
3.3 to 3.1 for Carly to 2.2 for Suffren. So it's just that those three are all handling the ball and handling the ball at a really high level.
And Carly has had a really nice, like she had to step up this year, and she's living up to that hype and doing it. 14 points a game, 3.1 assists, and 1.5 steals. Nelson also gets a lot of steals. Rose Michaud, we talked about on our last show. Her and Eck are both scoring over 11 points per game. Rose bringing in 8 rebounds a game. Eck's 3-point shooting hasn't quite come along this year
Yeah,
yet, but if it does, which I expect it to at some point, this team could take it up another notch because she is supposed to be a big part of this team. And once that shooting comes through and you add her to Wenzel, White, and Peterson, who can all shoot well, it's going to be fun, man. So they've got Florida State on the second in Castle. I expect to win that game.
yeah, I would think so. I mean, Castle for both programs has been kind of a safe haven, and I would expect them to. I think they can compete in this league. They're not at the Notre Dame or Duke level. No one expected them to be, but I think they're kind of in that second to third tier where they should be competing for postseason play. I think it'll be a fun ACC run, and kind of like the men, this is a younger team. The talent level there relative to the peers is higher.
Yeah.
Nelson, Wenzel, Suffren, Baker, they're all, former top 100 players. So from that perspective, they're in good shape. But but yeah, they're young too, so it'll be interesting to see how they can navigate those tough moments where it used to be, tough moment Liz Kitley, tough moment Georgia Amore. Now it's, someone's got to fill those shoes, and ACC play will certainly present plenty of those opportunities for this team.
Did you see that video today that the
It
team
was
put
so
out?
awesome. The Liz video, so great.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's January 19th. That's the retirement night, right?
Yeah,
Where they're
yeah,
retiring the 33.
yep,
They put out on the women's basketball account a really good video of Liz, and it just made me feel all the good feelings from the last couple of years in terms
yeah.
of how good we were and what they accomplished. So that'll be cool on the 19th to see her come back and get
That'd be
her
awesome.
her
That'd be awesome.
just
And her
due.
family's been at like every game anyway. Like her
I
parents
know
are still
they're still
there.
fans. They still,
It's the best. It's the
they're
best.
still in Blacksburg all the time. So that's pretty cool. So now let's do the women's ACC record prediction. And this is 18 games rather than 20. The women play 18 ACC games. What feels right to you in terms of a record for this team? Because there are 6 ranked teams, like I said, and a lot of good teams.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be optimistic. 10-8. I was gonna just split it and say 9-9, but that's so boring. So I'm gonna go 10-8 and say we win one game that, is a nail biter down to the end. I'll go 10-8. I like 10-8
Okay.
for this team.
I was gonna split it. I will do the boring thing. I'll go 9-9, but I also believe that if we go 9-9, depending on where the wins are, you're gonna be in the tournament. Like
Oh yeah,
in this
and that's why
league,
that
if
Georgia
you're
win was so big. That Georgia win was such a big deal because of that. For that
yeah,
exact reason.
yeah. So it's boring, but it's a good boring because
Mhm.
if you like Georgia Tech is 13-0. Like I don't even think of Georgia Tech when I think of, women's basketball greatness. And they're at the top of this league. Cal is 13-1 and they're new to the league. So even teams that I'm not thinking of, like
Yeah,
I think of the Louisvilles and maybe Stanford's and Notre Dame and Duke, obviously. NC State just went on a great run last year. But yeah, even other teams like Miami, they're 11-1. So tons of good teams. 9-9 would be more than enough to get this team in the tournament.
I think so. Yeah, I think one thing with NIL and the transfer portal, it hasn't impacted the ACC as much on the women's basketball side as it has in football and men's basketball. And I think as a result, the ACC, from a women's standpoint, has been able to maintain a really high standing relative to the other conferences in the country. So, yeah, the ACC is a really good league. I think 9-9, 10-8. I think you're probably in the NCAA tournament year one for Duffy.
Sweet. And how great would that be, right?
That'd be
I
awesome.
mean, she did a great job, even though we lost girls in the portal, which we know about. She did such a good job of maintaining the talent level, as you said, keeping top 100 players, getting new top 100 players, and it's just a totally different ball game than the men's program right now. It really is. We should probably start leading the show with the women, Ed.
And we probably will.
Depending on how ACC play goes, we might have to do that. But that's all I got, Ed. I don't know if you got anything else to finish it out.
Yeah, I got one more thing. I didn't even
Okay.
tell you I was going to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because I don't care. Not that we should be, and I agree with these people on Twitter, following or promoting our former coach and what he's doing, but I'm never going to take away from Georgia. Little Hokie update for the fans here. She's averaging 16 points a game and 7 assists, which is top 5 in the country. So super happy for her. I hope she has a great year. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's fine. There's a lot of our fans that are rooting against her. There's a lot of our fans that are rooting for her. And
There's
if you
more rooting for her than the
yes,
Twitter
yes,
timeline will tell you.
yes.
I've dabbled in it, just kind of lightly promoting what she's doing on Twitter before, and I get a lot of positive feedback. So
Okay.
there's a very loud minority who is upset, but happy for her, and wishing her continued success in SEC play. So she can get that first round draft pick. Who knows, man? Maybe she'll get announced as Virginia Tech and Kentucky. That'd be pretty cool.
She is doing exactly what we expected her to do. Like she's killing it. She's the best point guard in the country. It's definitely in the top few. So
It's probably
it's
her and Hidalgo. Yeah,
yeah,
Hidalgo at Notre Dame. We get to watch her play
she
this
is
year.
very good. Yes.
She might be the best player in the country, but yeah, shout out to Georgia. Keep killing it.
All right, man. That's going to do it. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Sons of Saturday feed on YouTube, Sons of Saturday feed in your Spotify and Apple podcast feed. We've had a great year. I talked a little bit about this with Sam. Just the listenership and the year-over-year growth has been phenomenal. Tomorrow, me, Billy, Pat, and Sam will be doing a bowl preview and finishing out the year for football. And then you'll see more of me and Ed and Mike as 2025 gets underway. But until next time, go Hokies.